This is Real Presence Live on the RPR Network, bringing you stories of faith and hope through local hosts and guests from across the upper Midwest. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Real Presence Live. This is Camille Pauley. I'm your host today. I am the president and co-founder of Healing the Culture, which is a pro-life organization founded by Father Robert Spitzer, and you can find out more about us at healingtheculture.org. That's healingtheculture.org, and learn more about how you can educate your friends and relatives on the pro-life issues. In this hour, I have some very special guests lined up. We're going to be talking about the issue of mental health and mental health awareness. This is a really important issue today because, as you probably know, if you're reading anything in the news, the mental health crisis today is very profound. And I have someone with us today. Dr. Greg Bottaro is the director and founder of the Catholic Psych Institute. He lives in Greenwich, Connecticut, and he lives with his wife and 7 children. Dr. Bottaro, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. Dr. Bottaro, I want to talk first in general about the mental health crisis. I know that statistics are showing, and you can just know about this by reading the news, that it seems like mental health is getting progressively worse. And we're reading all the time about the stats on young people, on older people, and the reports just seem to be getting more and more dire. And I don't know that we really know why. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the deepest answer to that question and the main problem is when people say that they're treating mental health, really we're treating the person, and something that is wrong or off about a person. And the field at large does not really understand or know what a person is. And so without having a sense of sort of what the object of treatment is, there's only so far that the treatments can go to improve the state of health. This is the problem with having no sense of spirituality or the reality of a spiritual nature having been created by God. Some of these things that we often talk about as parts of our faith and part of our religious life, we don't realize how important it is to see this in our humanity in a very general sense. So the secular world doesn't want to acknowledge the spiritual dimension of the person or the fact that we're created by God. And, sort of God has been rejected from society more and more over the years. That means that part of who we are has been rejected and is being ignored. And so the person is not understood. And so then all these efforts to try to help the person or heal the person are not going in the right direction.
So it seems like a really downward spiral because on the one hand, because our whole culture does not want to deal with the person as a full, whole, real person, because we've cut out the spiritual dimension of the human person, this leads to mental health issues because it leads to things like abortion and drug abuse and, all kinds of other kinds of abuse that can lead to mental health issues. But then when those people go to the mental health field to try to get treatment, they aren't being treated as whole persons, and so it just continues the cycle. Is that right?
Exactly. That's right.
Wow. So you run an organization, or is it an institute, called Catholic Psych. Can you tell me about that? What is Catholic Psych?
Yeah, Catholic Psych started in 2012. Before that, I got my doctorate in clinical psychology. Before that, I was actually a Franciscan friar, and I was discerning religious life for almost 4 years. And I had, my own conversion. I had deepened my sense of the philosophical understanding of the person through the Catholic perspective. Mm-hmm. And then I discerned religious life, so I learned that spiritual dimension, especially through Franciscan spirituality. And then, then I discerned, was called to marriage, so I left religious life. But before I made final vows, but it never really left me. And so when I went to study psychology formally, I knew that this was going to be a vocation. This was a mission. This is something that I wanted to bring together, the faith and the philosophical perspective of the person from the faith with the study of science and the psychological sciences. And so that's why I started the Catholic Psych Institute. And I saw that there's this need for a standard of mental health that is non-existent in the secular field. You know, it's really kind of it's almost so simple that people miss it, and it's kind of a scandal. But there is no standard. You know, if you're going to a medical professional and you need to, you know, have your heart checked, you go to the doctor and they take your temperature. You know, your temperature is based on standards. They see, okay, 98.6 is the healthy temperature of the person, of the body. And if you have 104 temperature, you know that this is a problem. And that standard is accepted widely.
Yeah.
There is no standard in health when it comes to mental health. And so there's diagnostic manuals that are put together by committees, and they're very vulnerable to agendas and politics, but they change all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like every 3-4 years we get a new revision to the diagnostic manual. It's like, imagine if they decided 3 years from now, you know, we're going to update what we think is a healthy temperature for the body. You know, like that would be crazy. So the difference between a standard and a diagnostic framework is really important. And when it comes to mental health, we only have diagnostic frameworks. We don't have standards.
So just listening to you tell us this, it sounds very frightening as somebody who's not in the field, that if I'm going to need to walk into the field at some point or send a family member into the field at some point, to know that there's not a standard is a really frightening thing. So what do the rest of your colleagues, would your non-Catholic colleagues agree that there is no standard and that this is a problem? Do they see this problem as well?
They would argue that there doesn't need to be a standard. You know, it's this idea of relativism. You know, so when you talked about abortion, so if, you know, is abortion unhealthy for women? Well, you know, to them they would say, well, that depends.
It depends. Yeah.
What does the research tell us? You know, you know, studies show that, you know, these markers improve for a woman who gets an abortion. So therefore, we could say, well, maybe in some cases this is actually a healthy option. You know, that is a very you know, sort of specific and clear example. But that same thought process undergirds pretty much everything else that happens in the therapy office.
Wow. So this is pretty much the patient leading the doctor. The patient saying, you know, well, let's find out what the patient wants and what worldview the patient is living from, and then adjust the model of treatment for that, instead of saying, well, here's who the patient is, and the doctor has the diagnosis, and we have the treatment based on who we know you are. So, wow.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I understand that the Catholic Psych Institute started implementing, I guess, what you call a model of accompaniment that you call mentorship.
Yes, that's right.
Can you tell us? Yeah, tell us about that. How does that work? What is that?
Yeah, so we kind of took a step back and saw if we're redefining, you know, the sort of framework in general and talking about building a model of mental health and a standard of mental health, you know, also might we reevaluate the methodology by which we help people. And of course, there's good reason to continue with certain methodologies that are out there, and they're proven, and they're definitely part of the hospital system and the judicial system, and a lot of people need those things. But we wanted to see if there might be a better way, if we approach it from especially a Christian perspective. How does Christ walk with us, encounter us? And what I realized is, you know, it could be a little bit artificial to create these appointments and have people wait a week or 2 weeks to talk about the things that are going on in their life that they really need help with. And so the methodology we developed called mentorship is our model of accompaniment, and it's a way in which we can actually talk to people every day. We have a daily dialogue that we allow for expression of need, of what's going on in a person's life as it's happening in their daily life. And we're there to walk with them and be present to them on a daily basis. We keep going. We keep the conversation going. We don't cut it off after a time limit and then say, see you next week. but we're really in it with people, helping them really unpack what it is that they need to look at.
So can you walk us through what that might look like really practically? I mean, maybe is there a success story that you have with one of your clients that you can share? How does that work in actual practice?
Yeah, in actual practice, there's a lot of issues that people deal with on a surface level or on a deeper level, but we often don't go deep enough to realize where there's some confusion or something we're blocking ourselves from. So I was recently working with a mom who had a lot of anxiety about her parenting, and that's obviously a common story. And as we were going deeper, it's like one day talk about like, okay, this is what happened with one of the kids, and we're just kind of dealing with how could I have handled that differently. But then just answering that question or talking through that brought up a whole nother slew of narrative that she felt guilty, she felt like she wasn't good enough, and that was right on the cusp of that next step. And then we talked through that. Where's this coming from? These voices telling you that you're not good enough. And then that, the next day developed into a deeper conversation of how much anger she had and pain and hurt from her own childhood, from things that were coming up from her mom. And, this is all like one step at a time conversation. It's not going to happen in 45 minutes, but it does kind of unpack a little bit over a few days. It kind of breathes. You have space to step away from the conversation, come back to it. And it allows for a depth where within the space of a week, all of these topics, all of these depths are covered and given space to actually be reflected on, as opposed to sort of like one Tuesday at 3 p.m. and then we wait until the next Tuesday at 3 p.m. where we revisit the conversation.
Wow, this is a really new way of walking by the patient and caring about the patient rather than just having a session and, like you said, waiting till the next week. Dr. Bottaro, we're up against a break in about 10 seconds. Can you hang on? Because I want to dive deeper with this, and I know there's a lot more that you have to teach us.
Sure thing.
Great. All right, we'll be right back, friends, with Real Presence Live. Stand by and stay tuned, and we'll be back with Dr. Greg Bottaro in just a bit.
This is Real Presence Live, where the focus is not on the evil around us, but on conversion and mercy through the good news that is always good. We're local, engaging, and live on the Real Presence Radio Network.
At the University of Mary, we offer an education for the whole of life. Our values-based, flexible, and affordable education will prepare you for success and help you become a leader in your field. Whether you want to start your degree for the first time or continue your education, whether you are a working professional or want to pursue school full-time, join us for an education that will help you make a positive impact in our community. Discover the Mary difference. umary.edu. That's umary.edu.
I would say where Catholic radio has played a pretty important role in my faith is I'm a scientist, so I think of everything kind of in knowledge and intellectual terms. So Catholic Answers helped a lot because I might have some questions or there was a lot that I wasn't aware of, and it always seems like the callers' questions were just timed perfectly for whatever I was wondering about or had questions about. So I was able to learn kind of piece by piece and build. And now with kids, I really like to hear Dr. Ray's show with all the little discipline tips because he makes it so simple.
Yeah.
I think for me, the history has been really interesting. I grew up Catholic and we went to Sunday school and religious education, but you can always learn more, and there's just, there's only so much that you can learn. I mean, when you're just going once a week to religious education. So for me, it's just been really interesting to learn, why do we do this, or where did this come from, or to be able to answer questions when people have them. I think that's been the biggest help.
Did you know you can listen to the RPR network when you're on the go? Just search for Real Presence Radio in your app store. Listen live to any station across the network at any time, so you can stay connected to your local community from wherever you are. Plus, if you miss a program, the Real Presence Radio app is your one-stop shop for local and national podcasts, including our signature show, Real Presence Live. The Real Presence Radio app, with you every step of your faith journey. Download it today and see what you've been missing. This is Real Presence Live on the RPR Network. bringing you stories of faith and hope through local hosts and guests from across the upper Midwest. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Real Presence Live. This is Camille Pauley, your host on Real Presence Radio. And right now I'm speaking with Dr. Greg Bottaro, who is the director and founder of the Catholic Psych Institute. You can find out more about that by going to CatholicPsych.com. That's Catholic and then the word psych, PSYCH.com, to find out more about what Dr. Bottaro and his colleagues are doing. Welcome back, Dr. Greg.
All right, thanks.
It's good to talk to you. So we were talking about your new model of treating patients with mental health issues called mentorship, which is you were explaining that you really walk alongside the patient as a full person, treating the person as the human person in the way that the Catholic faith has revealed that person to be, and not just seeing this as a, let's have a session, your time is over, now let's wait till next week, but diving deeply with the person as the time is needed to understand what the deeper issues are in that person that may be preventing him or her from healing. And I want to go a little bit more into breaking apart this mentorship. And I hope you don't mind. I'd like to speak about one specific area it's kind of personal to me, and that's the area of mental health which is labeled OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. I have a number of friends and even some members of my distant family who have obsessive compulsive disorder, or who have struggled, who I have known who have struggled with OCD. And it seems to be getting worse. The numbers of OCD seem to be skyrocketing. This is a disorder where a person, the brain sends emergency signals out when it shouldn't, and they can't get it to stop. And it's actually an actual disorder, and it usually focuses on something particular, like maybe a religious scrupulosity or a moral issue, or it could be, counting issues or cleanliness issues. And since COVID, reports I'm hearing from family practice doctors are that the rates of OCD just went way up. And I know that the treatment can be very, very good. There's a behavioral response therapy where you actually have them, confront the obsession and then not perform the compulsion that they want to perform in order to get the good feeling, to stop the obsessive feeling from harming them. But I want to talk specifically about your issue of the whole person, because one of the therapies that I encountered was that in religious scrupulosity with OCD, they were actually teaching the patient that there are no certainties in life. And so the way you overcome the disorder is by training your brain to recognize that nothing is certain. Whether or not God exists is uncertain. You'll never know. You'll never know whether or not what you're doing is a sin. You'll never know whether or not there's a heaven and a hell. And as long as you can get yourself to be convinced that you have no certainty about anything, then you're on your path to healing. And I put the stops on that and said, wait a minute, this sounds like the exact opposite of what we should be training the patient to do. Because what you're doing is setting this person up for a lifetime of complete self-alienation. So I don't know what your thought is on that, or if you've faced that, or if your ministry deals with that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, we work with people with OCD and scrupulosity in our practice all the time. And I would say, it's interesting. A lot of times people ask if I think that a Catholic therapist is necessary all the time. And I would say that there's a lot of areas of work that a secular therapist can do a great job with, just based on some of these secular models, even though, we're talking about across the board, I think things are moving in the wrong direction. But when it comes to scrupulosity and OCD specifically...
Dr. Bottaro, I'm going to stop you for just a minute because your audio is clicking in and out a little bit. Are you farther away from your phone source, or I don't know if there's something you can do to adjust?
Sorry, I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay? I'm just on my phone. It's not on speaker or Bluetooth.
On a mobile phone?
Can you hear me okay now?
Okay, if you could take it off speaker, that might help.
No, I'm not on speaker.
You're not on speaker.
On my phone.
All right, we can hear you. So it's just a little bit. The mobile is starting to go out, but go ahead.
I would say scrupulosity and OCD specifically, I would highly recommend somebody have a Catholic therapist if you're coming from a Catholic perspective. Mm-hmm. Specifically because of what you're saying here. And this is a prime example of that relativism that's entered into mental health. And so, it's very important to have a holistic perspective. Number one, working with OCD in general, there are quick fixes that are behavioral, and maybe you can get one particular pattern of thought or behavior to stop, but typically it will morph into another one unless you really go to the deeper cause and sort of work at the deeper root issue. Number two, if you start bringing in scrupulosity, questioning moral objectivity, I mean, that is disastrous.
Yeah.
So you certainly want somebody who has this objective moral framework that they will be able to work with the scrupulosity within. The truth is, we can know what sin is, obviously, but that's never enough because there are these complexities of nuance when it comes to culpability and self-awareness, and ultimately, it's not the unknown of God that gives us peace. It's the infinite love and mercy of God that needs to be the source and foundation of our peace. And so, we talk about growth in the spiritual life. You got to cover the basics. You have to know the sort of standards of moral behavior. But then when you get into it, and somebody will say, "Well, I don't know if I was really present during the rosary, or if I really meant the contrition that I prayed in my act of contrition for confession." Like at that point, we move past, objectively. Are you certain that you are, contrite? Well, at that point, you do have to let go on a certain level. And you're going to have to say, well, now I'm going to have to put it into the hands of God and His mercy. So it's a very nuanced answer.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced work that we have to make sure that the practitioner is well-versed in these things.
Yeah, I think I get it, because what you're saying is it's not that I have to train my brain to say it doesn't matter whether or not I've been forgiven because I'll never be certain whether or not I've been forgiven. It's I believe that God can deal with this and I can let it go. I don't have to have a certainty and keep checking and checking and checking. I need to let my brain know that it's okay to let it go into God's hands. Is that the kind of nuance that you're making?
Exactly. I love the nuance and complexity of Padre Pio's quote, to work as if it depends on us and pray and hope as if it depends on God.
Yeah.
And that's you have to have both. So it's not to say don't work so hard, because we should be working, but the velocity is as if it all depends on us. Where we also have to realize that our hope and our peace and our trust and our actual well-being comes from the fact that at the end of the day, it actually depends on God.
Yes, it does. I think you're going to be getting a whole lot of phone calls, because one of the big problems that we have as Catholics is trying to find a Catholic therapist who has the Catholic perspective, who has the objective moral framework. What do people do when they're looking for a therapist to help them deal with their mental health issues, but they can't find a real Catholic, therapist? Is there somewhere they can go where there's a clearinghouse of, people in your area? And what if there is nobody in their area?
Yeah, well, we have a very wide network. People can come to CatholicPsych.com. We do free consultations, and we can definitely help people to know whether or not our model is a good fit, and if not, we can help people to find a good referral as well.
And what about, if they don't have somebody in their area, do you do, remote online therapy? What do you think about online therapy? Does that even work? Because you're not exactly with the human person when you're doing this on Zoom.
No, this is exactly what we're doing. We're doing our work remotely. So we work with people all around the world, all around the country for sure.
Oh, wow.
And it's, we use technology in a way that serves us. And because the human person, we are complex. We have tools. We have instruments we can use. And there are ways. I'm doing a whole presentation coming up soon for our Summit of Integration on AI and a healthy Catholic approach to AI. It's not that the instruments or, the technology is bad in and of itself. It's when it's not serving us as humans.
Yeah. So you can treat somebody online. It doesn't have to be an in-person, face-to-face therapist.
We treat people, yes, exactly, because it's the spoken word. It's actually the, human communication. This is called talk therapy. We do this work through talking, through communication, and we are moving each other, like we're moved as persons through communication. So you don't have to, if you have your physical doctor, obviously you need somebody to be with you physically. But the kind of work that we're talking about, that we're doing with mental health, is done through the spoken word. It's through the way that we talk with each other.
And people can come to you to find out about this through your website. Is that the best place for them to go, CatholicPsych.com?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so Catholic Psych, that's the word Catholic, and then P as in Papa, S as in Sam, Y-C-H, like psychology, CatholicPsych.com. If you want to get a therapist, if you know somebody who could use a therapist, if you've been in therapy, but you really want somebody who has the Catholic perspective and an objective moral framework, CatholicPsych.com. Dr. Bottaro, you have a summit coming up. You called it the Summit of Integration. Tell us about that.
Yeah, June 20th, 22nd. It's also, you can find out about it at our website. We are going to have speakers from philosophy, theology, spirituality. We have Matt Maher doing music, so it's an artistic experience as well. A full weekend experience of different dimensions of being Catholic. We bring it all together. So we have Peter Kraft speaking, Jake and Heather Kim are two well-known podcasters, and they work with mental health. And so we're looking at how we can stop over-spiritualizing our mental health, but also have a place for spirituality. And we can fall into the error of either over or under spiritualizing our human experience. And if we see the proper integration of both our mental health and our spiritual health, then we have the best chance to really flourish and thrive and know who God made us to become.
Phenomenal. So that's the Summit of Integration, June 20th to 22nd. You've got some real powerhouses there, and it's going to be located where?
That is in right outside of Newark, New Jersey, and so we do have in-person tickets as well as online access. You can come virtually, so you can get tickets at CatholicPsych.com/summit.
Fantastic. Well, I am so blessed to talk to you. I am thrilled about what you're doing. I think our listeners are going to be bombarding your website to get more information about referrals and help, and maybe even attending that conference. Thank you, Dr. Bottaro. Do you have any last thoughts for us?
Just come check us out. If you have any question whatsoever, if you could use a little extra help, we all need relationships. We all need help, and it doesn't have to be professional. But you could definitely come check us out. We have free consultations to talk through whatever's going on and see if it might be a good fit for you at CatholicPsych.com.
Well, Dr. Greg Bottaro, the director and founder of Catholic Psych Institute, you can go to CatholicPsych.com to learn more. Thank you so much, Greg.
All right, thanks. God bless you.
God bless you. And friends, we'll be right back.
Live, engaging, and local. This is Real Presence Live, where we bring you positive and uplifting stories and share the great things happening in our local area on the Real Presence Radio Network.